Perfect reverse seared, medium rare whole beef tenderloin. Man, it just doesn't get any better. Well, howdy. My name's Cooter Pickleberry. This is Florida Man Cooking, and today we're going to make a whole beef tenderloin. A lot of people are intimidated by whole beef tenderloin. It's a very expensive cut. It's huge. A little bit of trimming you have to do before you start on it, but we'll show you how to do all that. It's almost foolproof. It's always good. Everyone loves it. We actually had a little visit today from Cypress, man. We'll get into that later, but he's a ghost or a vagrant, something. Runs around stealing fancy meat off of grills, and he's always preceded by a lone peahen, the female version of a peacock. We saw the peacock, kept an eye on the tenderloin. We actually got it back in the house and managed to eat it before he got any of it. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Welcome aboard. This is good stuff, man. You're going to enjoy this. Thanks for joining us. All right, so there it is, a whole beef tenderloin. Got a head to it, which is pretty thick, and a tail to it, which is pretty thin. Our job is to make it all even, so we're going to trim off some of this fat. I'm not going to show you the entire cleaning process. It takes a little time, but we're going to just kind of condense that into a minute or so here. Just get the blade, run it parallel to the whole body of the tenderloin, and you peel off that fat and that silver skin. And we're going to stick that in a bowl for junk. There is some stuff in here we're going to cut out. And we end up with about a pound and a half of extra meat that's not on the tenderloin that we use for fajitas or for, chili or whatever you want to use, beef stew. It's good stuff, man. It's really good meat. Don't throw it away. It's too expensive for that. So this is the chain right here we're working on. It's largely a fat piece. There is some red meat in it that we're going to steal later. But basically our job is just to kind of pull that away, cut it where you need to, and take that whole thing off in one big chunk. And then we'll spend a little time dissecting it later and getting as much meat out of it as we can get. Now in this case, I didn't need the whole thing, so I cut off the head too. It just makes it easier to keep it nice and level. And then with the head, we chop that up and make beef stew meat with it as well. And it's beef stew at the butcher shop is usually just whatever scrap they've got. This is good stuff, man. This is really good stuff. It's about the best beef stew or chili meat you're ever gonna get. Now because that tail's skinny and I want to keep it level, we cut a little bit of butcher twine. And remember, the key to a good knot is to be able to untie the knot. Well, in this case, we don't care because we're not going to untie it. We're going to fold that tail over on itself. We're going to string it up with whatever knot you can get it to hold. You can use a grinding knot, a square knot, a butcher's knot, whatever you got. So don't be intimidated by a knot. Let's tie that up. And once it's tied up, it's good, man, because we're going to cut that off with a knife later. Okay, so now that's done, we're just going to shape it a little bit. Kind of give it a rough shape, and then we're done with that. We'll show you real quick how we trim out this chain to get some meat. So that's a pretty decent sized chunk right there. You can leave a little fat on this, because at least if you're going to use it for beef stew meat, because that'll render out. You can see the big head there that I cut off, and that big head makes a good solid pound of beef stew meat, which is great. So we're just going to chop this stuff up. Got two bowls going, one for scrap and one for the meat that we're going to save. And what we do with that is vacuum seal it, stick it in the freezer, and then whenever it gets cold out and I make beef stew, we've got the meat already. And this is way better than the stuff you're going to buy at the butcher shop, which is usually scraps of sirloin or eye of round or a little tougher cut. Super tender meat, really good stuff, man. And back to the slop bucket, we're going to put some kosher salt over the top of this thing. Do it from reasonably high so you don't pinpoint it. You want to kind of broadcast spread it. And this whole thing is going to go in the fridge for a few hours. I think I ended up getting about 3 hours out of it. So just a little salt, leave it uncovered in the fridge. That'll suck some of that moisture in. 3 hours later, go down and start the fire. So we're using a live fire grill, a Santa Maria style or a Sato grill or whatever you want to call it. The meat's back out of the fridge after a few hours. We're just going to stick some pepper on it. Just because I like pepper, you can skip that step if you don't like it. And then you're supposed to use English mustard, which is a spicy brown mustard. I didn't have any English mustard, which is a little bit thicker than this. This is just the American version of spicy brown mustard. You really don't taste it very well or very much. It's just a binder for the herb covering we're going to put on it. But it's probably got a little flavor to it. Every time I make this, I do the same thing. I've never done it without, and I love the flavor of this, so I'm just going to stick with what I know and I like. So we just rub the mustard all over it. And you're not going through a whole lot of mustard here. You're just trying to get some moisture on top to help the herb mix kind of stick to it. So I'm using herbes de Provence, which is a few different herbs put together, but plenty of times I've just used dried rosemary and dried thyme and been really happy with that result as well. As a matter of fact, I think I actually prefer that, although this stuff's pretty good too. We're just going to shake that up a little bit, get every little bit all over every little bit, and when you're done, it looks kind of like this. So we went through quite a bit of seasoning. There's no salt in this. The only salt that I put on was that initial coat before it went in the fridge. Fire's ripping now. We're getting to the point that we can start earthquaking it and knocking some of those coals out. Once those coals get knocked out, we spread them around and start heating up the whole grill box. And it's really important to make sure you have plenty of wood going for this. You'd hate to run out partway through, so we're going to throw a couple more logs on and keep that coal bed growing. And then, like I always say with this kind of, actually any kind of grill, you want to drop that grill grate down on top of the coals so that it heats up, and that way nothing will stick. So the hotter it is, the better it is before you throw the meat on it. Then it won't stick. If you stick it on a cold grill, it's going to stick, and you're going to destroy your tenderloin, which would be a damn crime. Just rake those coals out, throw a little more wood on, got the grate down. We got our feral hog doing watchdog duty. So there it is. Herb crust is beautiful, sizzling on top of the grill. Looking good, man. Held my hand over it for about 6 or 7 seconds. That's like a medium-high heat. That's right where I want it. And we'll just give it a flip every now and then. Oh no, a lone peahen. So wild peacocks have existed in this part of Florida for years, decades really. It's mostly from old roadside attractions. They got released or just started breeding and escaping, whatever. We see them occasionally. However, you rarely see one peahen. And from what I understand, the legend is that the peahen operates as a lookout, or maybe just a pet that just hangs out with Cypress Man. Cypress Man's whole gig in life, nobody ever really sees him. We're not sure if he's a ghost or some vagrant. Just don't know. Could just be a dude, but he hangs out in the cypress swamps, the mangrove areas, coastal areas on the Gulf side of Florida, on the Gulf of America. And he steals prime cuts of meat off your grill. Now, I've lost enough food to the wildlife around here between the skunk apes and herpes monkeys, but Cypress Man, he freaks me out a little bit because you don't know if he's nefarious or if he's an all right guy who's just kind of hungry and likes prime meat. But what I know is I'm not going to leave this tenderloin sitting here even to go take a piss, man. I'm here until this thing's over because I don't want to lose this meat. It's so good. And that's a true story as far as you know. So we took the temp. It was about 115, 120 out on the outside, a little cooler on the inside, I mean in the middle of it. So we're starting to sear now. We drop it down on a lot lower to the coals to get a hotter temperature to start that reverse sear at the end. We'll roll around a little bit. Now the problem is the ends are warmer than the middle. And that's because obviously as the meat sits closer to that firebox, it's a little bit hotter. It's a little bit cooler on the other side. Well, I can do that on the ends. I can flip it around, but I can't do that in the middle. So what I did was I put the temp in the middle here, and I'm not quite where I want to be with the rest of it on the sear. So I raise the grill up just a little bit, and I get my poker stick in there, and I push and pull the coals towards the middle of the firebox. And you can kind of see that here. And then I cook with the hottest of the heat directly under the part that needs it the most. And it turned out perfectly. It really did. It turned out just absolutely amazing. A nice medium rare all the way through, pretty even cook all the way through. That's because I did this. I pushed some coals and I pulled some coals, so it's just the middle of the grill that's hot now. And once you do that, you lower it back down and just kind of cook that portion that needs it the most. That's kind of a neat thing with this kind of grill. Total cook time was about 30, 35 minutes probably. The sear was just kind of rolling around every couple of minutes to get that bark on the outside seared up. Pulled it off about 125. We'll let the carryover heating do the rest of it, so it's going to sit and think about its actions for about 10 or 15 minutes before I slice it. That peahen came back and the dog started going nuts. Pretty sure Cypress man's out there somewhere. And we're gonna pull this off and get it inside, lock the door behind us. And now we're just gonna cut that twine off before we start carving. It's pretty easy. You just get a knife in there and cut it. Don't worry about trying to untie the knot. You can see that nice dark bark all the way around it. It looks pretty beautiful. We slice it. I think I have to sharpen my slicing knife, but that herb crust was, pretty thick and slowed the knife down just a little bit. But take a look at this meat, man. Juicy, tender, perfect medium rare, deep dark herb crust on the outside. It just doesn't get any better, man. That's my favorite beef by a long shot. I might have to do this more often. I'll just get a second mortgage on the house. Look at that piece of meat. It's just fall apart tender. And it's just, yeah, you just don't get anything better than that, man. I love this stuff. That about wraps it up. That was absolutely delicious, man. I just love that stuff. It's got that herb crust on the outside, super tender, beautiful medium rare on the inside, fun to cook over live fire. Um, Pretty easy to do, really. It just takes a little bit of time, but gosh, that's good stuff. That's probably my favorite beef ever. It is my favorite beef ever. Thanks for joining us. Hope you come back and see us again real soon. Sure appreciate a like and subscribe if you can find the time to do that, if you're interested. And God bless you all. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day.